Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning to whenever you're watching this. Welcome to one of the first videos for this channel where I'll be basically giving you insights on certain topics in the sneaker world, certain news, certain topics about, just buying shoes or even fixing shoes or just keeping up with shoes in general. And the first topic I wanted to talk about today was buying used shoes because it's not really talked about too often in this space. There are some few niche like times where I've seen it be talked about for the most part, but in general, I just don't really see it talked about enough, and I would like to, spend a couple minutes just talking about it because I think it's at least in this day and age, September 9th, 2025, with how money is, I think it's very viable for somebody who's into shoes to be wanting to buy used if they're comfortable, of course, because not everyone's going to be comfortable. And for certain things it doesn't make sense to. And where it does make sense to is in this instance where for this particular model, Jordans in general, certain ones, certain fours, threes, even some fives, they've gotten, I'd say, a decent jump in like price. Like, for example, these. Right now, let's go to the average size, which is for men around 9.5 through 8, maybe 10.5 if you're stretching it. But the average size is 9.5 through 8. And, you know, 353, yeah, most people in general won't want to spend $353, and that's not including the fees that some of these online retailers take. For example, Goat, they have their own fees, their shipping, their buyer's fee. StockX has their own fees, which is I would say around an extra like $50 if you were buying something. I like a lot of these prices are very deceiving when it comes to these types of websites. Like the sticker, for example, like the sticker price, I would call this the sticker price. It's not the actual price you're going to be paying, of course, because if you have a state that has tax, like New York has stat tax, and the same thing with other states. However, if you're in Pennsylvania, they don't have tax for clothing and shoes and stuff like that. So you would, in theory, get a cheaper price. But this is all relative. So what I'm getting at is you don't always have to buy brand new shoes to an extent because not everything is worth the retail price or even the sticker price. Because, for example, these right here, $215 retail, Cave Stone Jordan 4s. That's pretty expensive. 4 years ago, Jordan 4s were 190 plus tax, so 204, at least in New York State. So 204 after tax. If you buy it now in full retail, you will be paying, let's say, around 235, maybe 240, depending on where you get them, because if they're from a boutique, if anything. And even here, 215 for a Jordan 5. These were also going for 190 a couple years ago. Yes, inflation is a thing, but it gets to a point for shoes at least where shoes shouldn't be this price. And shoes, I don't think, are sustainable to collect at this price. And that goes for a lot of people because you can, if you guys are not in tune with the resale for majority of shoes, they're under retail. They're going for below retail. Here's one of the examples. This shoe, Shatter Backboard, came out originally 2015. This shoe used to go for thousands of dollars. And because apparently the leather on the shoe was so much better than every other Jordan leather, even though it was the same materials, same makeup, same everything. It just felt a lot more plush in some people's opinions. Now, if we go back, they re-released it this year, and before in the 2015 pair, 500 for a pair, and now these Jordan 1s retail for 190. So that's a steep price to pay when Jordan 1s were going for 160. As you can see, 158. This is where I would say buying used isn't very practical because you're already getting under retail. And for a shoe that just came out, if you want the shoe right now, you can get it for under retail. And of course, it can go down, but also it can go up. One of the examples where most people thought it was going to go down was this right here. These. When these had come out back in, I believe, March or February, one of those 2 months, it was a shoe that was going for 250, 250, and the average just 9.5. And people thought, oh man, this is gonna be, a simple shoe that's gonna go maybe under retail, but it might stay at retail, which was 225. This shoe has almost doubled since then. Why? I could not tell you, being completely honest, because it feels like an outlier this year for a shoe to be over retail and it not be something special like collab or something very limited because these shoes were nowhere near limited. They were in every Foot Locker. Foot at Foot Action doesn't exist anymore. Oh my God. They were in every Foot Locker, Champs, JD Sports, Finish Line, and they were pretty. I wouldn't say easy to get. Like you couldn't just walk into a store to grab them, but if you put a minimal effort into trying to get them, you would get them. They were I would say easy in terms of buying a shoe that you really want. And it makes sense. It makes sense that like this shoe should have been retail because it was so readily available. Here is some a shoe where I would recommend, or in general, buy used because look, 237 with the box has some scuff marks. I'd see some right there, but overall, it's in still really good condition. The most you would have to do is clean it. And that's where some people, get that fear of, oh, I don't know where these people, what these people wore, like if they wore socks, how do they treat their stuff? It's kind of similar to like, buying, this is probably an extreme example, but buying a used car, you know, you buy a used car, you want to know the history of it. Shoes, you really can't know the history unless like the buyer's stating what, like how long they've had it. Were they the first person to like wear them? Did they also buy them used? But most people don't do that. So, one of the other places where I'd say is the best place to buy shoes, used shoes, is eBay. Because eBay, you're not dealing with a lot of the same fees that GOAT, StockX, or even local stores have, because local stores that do sell used, in some instances, they are cheaper, but in most instances, they have to cover their overhead and pay for their employees. And if we look at the same Jordan 5, right? Look at that, just on the first page. This is below retail, but because it's used. And even if they are not real, they are authenticated just like on every other website. So you have that peace of mind as well. So you don't really have the issue of them going through and passing even though they're fake. You know, a lot of these they're still above retail even if they are used, but they're a better price because 350 is a lot worse than paying 300. You're saving yourself $50, which right now may not seem like a lot, but it does go a long way. And shoe retailed for 190, 190, or in some places 200. And 129. 129 for a brand new pair. Some it's a lot more expensive. 147 for a 9.5, very common size. And, it doesn't logistically make sense, if you're trying to get this shoe now, because you can definitely find pairs used for under $100. See, right at 100, right at 100, under 100, close to the under 100, but that's a very good price for a 9.5. And a lot of them are going on the retail. You could buy used and save these a couple like $20, $20 after tax, maybe 30. But if you want to get that extra, you want to just be able to have them brand new because it's a shoe that dropped this year. I can understand that. A lot of people can understand that collect shoes. Where used really, really shines is keep using this shoe as an example. I can go into other models as well. I'll just show this as an example as well. If we sort for releases, what is considered vintage, right? Now, as someone who owns vintage, vintage in quotation marks, because I don't know, certain people's like I don't know certain people's qualifications for vintage, what they deem as vintage, because even GOAT um in certain shoes, this is a this makes I'm sure this will make a lot of you feel old. Um, where are they? Use this one for example. 2016 Air Max 98 Supremes. Let me see. There you go. There's the example. New slash vintage. A 2016 shoe is now considered vintage in GOAT's eyes because it's almost 10 years old. If they're brand new, certain shoes are made from a material called polyurethane where over time it will break down and begin to dissolve if it is not properly, for lack of a better term, worn. If it's not worn after 5, 6, even 4 years in some cases, it will begin to deteriorate and basically crumble like breadcrumbs, for lack of a better comparison, breadcrumbs. And if you buy, let's say you save up $500 for, let's say this is your all-time favorite shoe. You save up for a pair of these Mars Blackmon from 2006. 2006, I would consider these unwearable brand new because the Jordan 4 is made up of polyurethane, which as you can see in this photo, it's starting to crumble. There's a little bit of cracking right there. And I know I'm ignoring it for the time being that there's a missing piece right here, but that's also another problem when it comes to older shoes and even newer shoes. Over time, newer shoes, whether this be Jordan 4s, Jordan 5s, Jordan 6s, Jordan 7s, Jordan 8s, anything above the Jordan 1 has things that will break or crumble over time. Doesn't matter how well you take care of it, doesn't matter how well made it is, it will eventually fall apart. And unfortunately, that is the price you have to pay to have things that you like, which is, it does suck, but that's why they continuously retro shoes over and over and over again. Because if everyone had the original pairs, they would not be wearable unless you know how to restore shoes, which is another topic I'll get into for another day. But buying used buying used vintage is probably the I would say the only one of the best, or if not the only way to buy vintage Jordans and Jordan 4s in general. This is just since it's the most popular Jordan right now that everyone has been wearing, or the I would say if not the only Jordan model that most people wear now, considering how many other brands are popular at the moment, whether that be Asics, New Balance, certain Adidas models, certain other Nike models, luxury brands such as Birkenstocks, it doesn't even have to be shoes. People are branching out for a good reason because the Jordans have become so expensive where they are now pricing out the average consumer from even affording them brand new, which is why, some people are starting to turn to used because it doesn't make sense. The resale market, while it is down right now, there are still people that, are upcharging 200%, 300%, or even 400% for certain shoes. People who collect shoes, they want their shoes for retail at best, or at worst, I should say. At worst, they want to be able to get them for retail. If they can get them on sale, they will wait. Majority of people are patient enough to save money, especially when it is their hard-earned money from their hard-earned jobs. You know, if you can save money and put it towards something that's actually, like I wouldn't say shoes are like matter, but like for life purposes and to, keep you afloat. People are gonna put that money towards that and not shoes because shoes at the end of the day, they're a luxury to an extent. Jordans are a luxury. Any higher end in quotation mark shoes as a luxury. And used is sort of a cheaper way to get into said, luxury of owning some Jordans because not everyone is fortunate enough to get Jordans all the time because Jordan brand loves to drop shoes every single month. It feels like they're just flooding the market with so many different things where some of them I'm gonna keep opinions out of it, but like some of them shouldn't, you know, they need to space them out more. I'm not saying they need to stop dropping certain things or like they need to space it out more because this shoe is a perfect example. Black Cats, they retroed in 2020. Normally, red shoes will retro after seven, 8, 10, 9 years. You know, this shoe is retroing this year. It retroed 5 years ago, and it is coming back out this year for 225. Granted, this is a double-edged sword because right now, if we go look at the 2020 pair of the Jordan 4 Black Cat, it's 2025. Still 2025. Jesus. There we are. If we look at the 2020 pair, this was all at most points before the new retro was announced, this shoe was upwards of $1,000. This shoe is not worth $1,000. This is an all black Jordan. This is very plain. It goes with a lot of things, yes, but it is not $1,000 worthy. When this shoe first came out, it was sitting under retail. So it was on sale for less than $200. Now, whether you passed on it thinking that you didn't want it, it's all black, it's boring, I'm not going to fault you on it. But for the people that had wanted the pair, who want the pair now, not only is before the new retro was announced, not only was the shoe $1,000+ for a very, very basic colorway, it's something that, it gets dirty and messed up easily, which is weird considering it's a black shoe, but a lot of the used pairs are very dirty or are very messed up, which is kind of weird considering it's a black shoe. And I understand what Nike's trying to do here. They're trying to flood the market to get rid of this inflated price because this price is definitely inflated. It doesn't make sense. Now, they're not directly making a one of one retro of this because it features the Nike Air on the back instead of the Jumpman, right? But it's going to serve a purpose of for those people who don't want to pay $1,000, they will pay the 225 because this shoe will definitely sell out because the majority of people who want this shoe will automatically go for this because it's 225. 225 hurts a lot less than $1,000 or even $380 for the cheapest on Go, and that might need not even be in good condition. Let's look at eBay. 225, 255, 300, 200. And that's prices that are from after this new retro was announced. So people are trying to get rid of their pairs because they won't be as valuable. So Nike knows what they're doing, trying to flood the market with a bunch of different options for people to get at retail or even below retail. These have yet to these just came out and they're already under retail. And even in resale stores, you can find them for retail. These are going to be under retail. These are kind of in the air because we don't get a lot of Jordan 5s like this, and this is technically the first retro since 2006, which I do like. I do like that they are retroing shoes from 2000s because we need it, you know. As much as I love um as much as I love the Miss Blues, I would prefer to not buy a fourth pair for 2006, even though I know how to fix and restore shoes. Um, it would be nice to have a updated model with the updated shape. If you can get it for a good price, that's the best. That's gonna feel way better than, just having it. If you find it at a good price, even if it's especially in shoes, even if it's a little dirty, and you clean it, it feels like, yeah, I just got a steal of a century, and you're gonna enjoy that shoe a lot more than if you overpaid for something, you know? But that'll be it. You Final thoughts are buy used, you know, when you can, if you want. If you want to get into one thing I can say is if you start buying used and you start researching on how to properly clean and restore shoes, you might go down another rabbit hole, which will in turn lead to a whole nother hobby, which I'll get into another time. But it can lead to even more of a time sink, for lack of a better term, on this sneaker world.